Hello and welcome to Nithrania YouTube channel. You're watching another episode of the Game in a Nutshell series designed for explaining the board game rules. My name is Branislav Berec, and in this video we're going to learn how to play The Old King's Crown, a game designed by Pablo Clark, published by Eerie Idol Games. It's a game for 1 to 4 players. It takes about 1 to 2 hours to play, and the recommended age is 14 years and up. This is the first video for this game. In the second video I will explain the solo rules. In this one I will focus on the multiplayer rules, so the games of 2 to 4 players. So let's get started. To set the game up, prepare the kingdom board. First, take all these kingdom cards, shuffle them, place them face down on this space, and then start revealing cards face up from right to left, including the card on top of the deck. Which means there are 4 face up cards available here, and this area is called the Great Road. Then this is the season marker, place it here on the start of the year space. These are clash markers, place them here from number 1 to number 3. Then this is the active player marker, place it on this space next to the turn order track, and then each player chooses a color and then determine the player order either randomly or from oldest to youngest, if you will. And so place the players' discs here from number 1 to number 4. I'm demonstrating a 3-player game, so we have 3 tokens here. Then this is the council style. Either place it above the game board or somewhere next to it. Then place this Kingdom's Favor disc on this Harvest Field location. And finally place the round marker on the first round of this round track. And then create the general supply of these tokens. This is an influence token. These are 5 influence tokens. And this is a lore token. Note that this small tray is not part of the game. Then each player takes all the components of the chosen color, of the chosen faction. Take the player board. This is your Herald, 5 supporters. These are 4 tactic styles. You can place them here in any order. Then this is the hand size limit marker. Place it so that the number 6 is pointing towards your player board. It's also indicated by the small star icon, which means your starting hand size limit is 6 cards. Then these are faction markers. Then these are your faction cards. The cards with this lore symbol here are your advanced faction cards. You have 3 of them, and these are 2 headquarter cards. You can place them in any order on this tile, which is called the Site of Power tile, and they take all your basic faction cards. Locate the card with this symbol, this is your heir, set it aside, shuffle all your remaining cards, and then draw cards from top of the deck until you reach your hand limit, which is 6 cards. These cards are in your hand, don't show them to other players, keep them secret. The remaining cards form your draw deck and leave some space here for the discard pile. And that's the end of the setup. With the Old King gone, the Ancient Kingdom enters a new era of uncertainty, the period of factionalism and division, and this land, littered with statues and monuments that recall old orders, now faces a crisis of rule. In this game, each player represents the head of one of 4 of these prominent factions as they stake their claim to the land and make their bid for the throne. There are 4 factions in the game. The green one is called the Clans. Choose this faction if you enjoy a playstyle that favors momentum, mobility and overwhelming force. The purple faction is called Gathering. This faction is good at card manipulation, subversion and creeping accrual of power. The blue faction is called the Nobility. This faction is good at defense and the ability to sustain and exert control. And the red faction is called Uprising and favors scheming, careful feints and eliminating rival cards. The game is played over a fixed number of rounds, 5 rounds in a standard game, 4 rounds in a short game and 6 rounds in the extended game. For your first game it's recommended to use the standard game. Each round has 5 phases, and these are elegantly shown on the game board. The first phase is the start of the year. It is skipped in the first round, but usually people draw cards and the turn order is determined during this phase. Then in the second phase, the spring phase, players place and resolve their bids on these kingdom cards, and then players place their heralds and cards and supporters on regions, where in the summer phase the clashes will take place. And they also activate their spring actions and commands indicated by this icon. You can find those on the kingdom cards or on your player board or tactics tiles. And then in the summer phase, the clashes in regions will take place. We have 3 regions, and these clash markers will determine the order of these clashes. And in each clash, players will have a chance to place their summer day actions and commands, and subsequently the night effects, which can be very powerful, and that's why players have this daytime to prepare for these night effects. Then players will determine their strength and winners will claim the rewards. This is going to happen for all 3 clashes. And then in the autumn phase, you will have a chance to trigger your autumn abilities and actions and commands with this icon. And you will also have a chance to govern and journey. With governing, you will place cards in these councils, which will allow you to trigger these abilities, very powerful abilities. And with journeying, you will be able to acquire new and more powerful faction cards and headquarter cards. And finally, in the winter phase, the winter effects will take place, and this is the cleanup phase and the preparation for the next round. The game ends at the end of the last round, which is 5 rounds in a standard game, and the player with the most influence wins the game. You gain influence primarily by winning clashes, by activating the council. And now we will cover all these phases in more detail. And since the start of the year phase is skipped in the first round, let me skip directly to the spring phase. The spring phase has several steps, and the first one is placing and resolving bids on these kingdom cards. Kingdom cards provide players with unique abilities and benefits. Some of them are permanent, like in this case. Other cards give you abilities which you can trigger during various phases of the game. And some of these cards do something immediately when you gain them, so always make sure you read this text in bold. And sometimes these kingdom cards are actually placed in regions. Players place their bids simultaneously, and then they resolve them in the bidding order. So let's take a look at it. So first, players simultaneously and secretly choose one of their cards from their hand and place that card face down in front of them. When all players are done, they simultaneously reveal their cards, and then the bidding order is determined by the value of those cards. The player with the highest value goes first, the player with the lowest value goes last. In case of a tie, the tie is resolved by the player order. The player earlier in the player order goes first. So in our example, we have this green player, then purple, then blue. Now, when resolving your bid, you have 3 options. The first one is to claim one of the kingdom cards here on the Great Road. The second option is to steal one of the cards from your opponent, and the third option is to do nothing and take your card back into your hand. When you choose to acquire the kingdom card, choose any card, any face-up card, so any of those available, then occupy it with your faction card. To do that, place the kingdom card on your player board and tuck your faction card underneath, and now this faction card occupies that kingdom card. If both of your slots are occupied and you gain a new kingdom card, simply discard one of the kingdom cards from your player board. The faction card goes back into your hand, and then place the new kingdom card and the new faction card in place of the previous ones. Discarded kingdom cards are placed in a face-up discard pile. In case this draw pile runs out, simply reshuffle the discard pile and create the new draw pile. Instead of acquiring a kingdom card from the Great Road, you can steal the kingdom card from your opponent. If you want to do that, the value of your bidding card must be higher than the value of the faction card occupying the kingdom card you want to steal. If that's the case, simply steal that kingdom card. This occupying card goes back to the hand of that owner, and you place your kingdom card and your faction card using the standard rules. The third option is to take your card and put it back into your hand and do nothing else. You will not take any kingdom cards from the Great Road and you will not steal any kingdom cards. Then, when all players are done with resolving their bids, repopulate the Great Road. First, discard the rightmost card from the road, and in case no cards were taken from the Great Road, and there are 4 cards available here, you would discard 2 rightmost cards. Then slide all the remaining cards to the right and reveal the cards face up from right to left, including the card on top of the deck. Then in the next step of this spring phase, in turn order, players will place heralds in regions, and then simultaneously players will place cards into regions. Placing the heralds happens in the turn order, so starting with the first player continuing to the last one. To place a herald, take it from your player board and place it in any of these 6 locations on the map. These areas are called locations. 2 locations form 1 region. So this is the second region and this is the third region. When you place your herald, you can place it in any location, even in the location with other heralds. And heralds are good for gaining more influence during clashes or even stealing influence from other heralds in the same location. Then players will simultaneously place cards in these regions. When placing cards into regions, not only the strength of the card is important, also these traits and these commands. For example, these cards cannot be eliminated from the region. These cards, when they are eliminated, they go into your discard pile instead of to the lost pile. Then these cards are also good for making a journey. Cards with ambush allow you to add more cards to the region. Cards with retreat allows you to retreat the cards back into your hand, and so on. I will talk about these effects later. So choose 3 cards from your hand and place 1 face down in each region. And finally, in the last step, again in turn order, players will activate their spring actions and abilities indicated by this symbol. Since a lot of things can happen during this step, take this active player marker and give it to the active player. When we start with the first player, you can give it to the first player. And now you can activate any abilities with this spring icon. You can have them on these tactics tiles, you can have them on your player board, you can have them on kingdom cards. One of the spring actions is to place any number of supporters into regions. You have a limited number of supporters. You can place as many as you want into a specific region. So you don't place them in a specific location, you can place them in the region. When you activate your tactics tile, resolve the effect on that tile and then flip it face down. It's no longer available for the rest of the game. Some tactics tiles may have these faction markers placed here during setup. Every time you use that tile, simply remove one of those faction markers and place it into your supply. By the way, the number of these faction markers is not limited. If they run out, use any suitable supplement. And you can place your supporters in any number of regions. You don't have to place them all in one region, you can place them in several regions. And when you're done activating your spring actions, move the action marker to the next player in the turn order. And now that player may activate their spring actions and abilities, and when all players are done, the spring phase is completed. The next phase is the summer phase, which only has 2 steps in the first one. The last player on the turn order track will place these clash markers, and then those clashes will be resolved. In our example, the blue player is the last player, so they take these clash markers and, for example, they may distribute them like this, which means this region will be resolved first, then this one, and finally the third one. Now, The clashes will be resolved from the first to the last. In each clash, this sequence has to be followed. First of all, reveal all the cards in the region, then activate all these day abilities, day action step, then the night effects will be triggered, and only after that you will determine the total strength of each player in each region, and then winners will claim their rewards. So, first reveal all the cards in the active region. Active region is the region where the clash is taking place right now. Then in the second step, players will have a chance to use these day commands and abilities that are on the cards in the active region, but also on their player board. In turn order, again, use the active player marker. The first player in the turn order will activate any abilities and commands in any order. All of these are optional. When that player is done, and then the next player in turn order will have a chance to do the same, and then the following players. So all players will activate these day abilities before they proceed to the night step. Let's take a look at some of these commands. These are printed on your faction cards. The first one is called Ambush. This command allows you to take another card from your hand and place it face down in the active region. Don't reveal that card yet. Wait until all players finish performing their actions and abilities. And only after that, these newly added cards of all players will be revealed face up. And if these cards have any day abilities or commands, you can resolve them now. This one doesn't have any such commands or abilities, but for example, if we revealed this card, this one has this flank command, and that one allows you to take this card and move it from the active region to any other unresolved region. So for example, we would be able to move it to this region. Instead of resolving the ambush command here, we could resolve the retreat command. The retreat command allows you to take any number of your cards in that active region and put them back into your hand. And also you can take your Herald and any number of supporters from the active region back to your player board. By the way, you can activate these commands, ambush and retreat and flank, once per clash. So if you retreat the card from the active region and then with another ambush, for example, you add it to another region, you can activate these commands again. As I said, once per clash. In our example, the blue player has the flank command here, and since the blue player does not really want to be involved in this clash, they can move this card to another unresolved region, and let's move it here. Now, after all players have activated their day abilities and commands, the night effects are triggered. In our example, we don't have any night effects in the active region. However, if there was a card with a night effect, it would be triggered now. One of those night effects is this deadly effect. It is very powerful. It eliminates all other opponents' cards in the active region. So in this example, it would eliminate this active card. All these night effects are triggered simultaneously, so if there were multiple cards with the deadly effect, they would eliminate each other simultaneously. So the green card would eliminate all the purple and blue cards. The purple card would eliminate all blue and green cards. However, certain cards have these traits. This one is called invulnerable, which means this card cannot be eliminated from the region. This air has this resilient icon or trait, which means if this card is eliminated, it goes into the player's discard pile. Cards which don't have those traits, when they are eliminated, place them into a lost pile, which is a general discard pile somewhere next to the game board. So once these night effects are resolved, move on to the next step, which is telling your strength in the active region. Sum up the values on your active cards, plus the number of supporters you have in the region, plus any abilities or adjustments from your player board, from the kingdom cards, and that's your total strength. In our example, green player has 5, 6, 7. Purple player has all the cards eliminated, so his strength is 3, and the player with the highest strength wins the clash. In case of a tie, green player has 10 points of strength plus 1, 2 supporters, that's 12. Purple player has 9 plus 3, that's also 12. Let's assume that there are no other abilities altering the strength. It is 12 points of strength for both sides. In that case, again, in player order, each player will have a chance to play a new card into a completely new clash in the same region. Thematically, think of it as if both armies sort of killed each other and you have to bring in new reinforcements. A completely new clash is going to be resolved. The only difference is that players place their cards face down into a clash in turn order and not simultaneously. So on your turn you either place a card face down or you pass. If at least one player places the card face down, the clash is resolved as usual. If no players place any cards and they all decide to pass, the clash is resolved as a tie, there's no winner and nobody will claim any rewards. But let's say both players would decide to place new cards into the clash, they would reveal the cards. Again, they would have a chance to resolve any day abilities. Then all the night effects will be triggered. And then when you tally your strength, consider the values on the new cards only. Don't count the values on the previous cards. Don't add supporters because they have already been involved in the previous clash. So only the values on the new cards plus potentially any abilities on your kingdom cards. So here the green player has 5, purple only 2, so the green player would be the winner of this clash. Then move on to the final step, which is claiming rewards by the winner of the clash. The winner, green player in our example, can choose one of those 2 locations in the region and claim the rewards from that location. So in this case, if the green player chooses this location, they take 1 influence token, which is basically 1 victory point in the game. And the green player may also take this kingdom favor token, which is placed here. I'm going to talk about this token in a minute. If you have your herald in the location, you also gain additional influence. And on top of that, if there are any other heralds in the location, heralds of other players, you may steal 1 influence from all those players and add it to your supply. Now let's come back to this Kingdom's Favor token. If you have that token, you may perform the faction-specific ability. In this case, it's the Summer ability. When you claim that token by winning the clash in the Harvest Field, take that token from anywhere in play, whether from the Harvest Field location itself or from any other player who would have that token. And when you take it, set it to number 3. Even if you have that token, take it from yourself and place it back and set it to number 3, which means you can activate that ability 3 times. Every time you activate that ability, rotate the token to indicate how many activations you have available. And when you activate the ability for the 3rd time, take the token and put it back into the Harvest Field location. So that's the end of the first clash. Now repeat the same with the 2nd region and then with the 3rd region with the 3rd clash. And when you're done, we will move to the autumn phase. However, before we move on to that autumn phase, let me give you one clarification here. When you activate the clash and you reveal the cards in the first step of the clash, some players may have more than 1 card in the clash because these cards have the flank command and they have been flanked here, they have been moved here from other clashes. So both the purple and blue player would start the clash with 2 cards with a total value of 12 in this case. And note that these players may not activate this flank command any longer because there are no other unresolved clashes, which means there are no other conflicts where these cards can be moved to. So, moving on to the autumn phase, which is again performed in turn order. Each player have a chance to perform 1 govern action, 1 journey action, and then activate autumn actions and abilities and commands with this symbol. and you can use these options in any order you want. You may activate one ability, then you may govern, then you may activate another ability, you may journey, then perform one command, and so on and so forth. Let me start explaining the govern and journey actions, which you can only perform with cards in your hand. To perform the govern action, choose any card in your hand with this gavel icon, with this small gavel. Take that card and place it in any council of your choice face up. There's no limit to the number of cards each player can have in any column. When you add a new card, place it so that these gavel symbols on all other cards are visible. And there are 3 different councils. The more gavels you have in each council, the better. Now let me quickly go through the effects of those councils. When you resolve your Herald reward during the clash, if you remove any cards from this council, for each gavel removed this way, you gain 1 additional influence. Every time you remove the cards from the council, move them to your discard pile, which is a face-up pile, and it's a public information. Any player can look at your discard pile at any time during the game. Then the second council, Council of Secrets, is actually an ability which you can trigger during the autumn phase. When you do, place your faction markers on any location. You can place them on one location, or you can split them into any number of locations you want. And the number of faction markers you can place is equal to the number of gavels you have in this council. Now, if that location has 4 or more location markers, so let's say we have 4 markers here, you can remove those markers, you can move them back to your supply and activate the location reward, ignoring the influence reward. So only the location one, in this case we would take the King's Favors token. The last council is the Council of Oaths, which can also be triggered during the autumn phase, which says that for each gavel icon you have here we have 2, you can move the supporters from the map or even from the lost pile back to your player board. This is one of the ways how to get your supporters back from the lost pile. Now, if you have most gavel icons here, you can move 1 additional supporter. By most, it means more than any other player. In this example, all players have 2 gavels, which means none of them has the most gavels here. Then the journey action allows you to move a card with these lore icons from your hand to the lost pile. Then for each lore icon on that card, you gain 1 lore token. Now, when you gain these tokens, and only when you gain these tokens, immediately afterwards you can spend them and acquire new cards from your site of power. The number of lore tokens you need to spend to buy each card is indicated in the top right hand corner of each card, including these HQ cards. Here we have 2, 2, 3, 5. You can buy any number of these cards as long as you can pay for them with these lore tokens. So for the sake of explanation, let's say we have 5 of these tokens. You can buy any of these cards. If you buy an advanced faction card, you put it into your hand, pay the indicated number of lore tokens. If you buy an HQ card, let me say this one, put that HQ card into your supply area, which means into your play area. Again, it costs 2 lore tokens. The HQ cards provide permanent abilities. They don't go into your hand, these stay in your play area. Any unused lore tokens remain in your supply. If you decide not to spend the lore tokens when you gain them, you may not spend them anytime later. You can only spend them when you gain them. Now, when you buy all the cards from your side of power, you unlock a special ability which gives you 1 influence for every 2 lore tokens remaining in your supply at the end of the game. When you acquire a new card, or anytime you acquire a card and your hand is full, you are already at your hand limit, the new card is placed on top of your draw deck. And there are 2 more commands which I want to talk about. The first one is Rally. The Rally command allows you to take a certain card or cards back into your hand. In this case, in parentheses, it says self, which means you can take this card and put it back into your hand. So with rally self, I can take this card and put it back into my hand. In this example, there's rally any 2 cards, which means you can take any 2 cards back into your hand. It doesn't have to be this one, it can be any other. And the last command is deploy, and there's always a number behind that command, which means number of influence tokens which are placed on that card. Deploy means that you can deploy that card into any region, and those influence tokens will be important in the next phase, the winter phase. Winter phase is the last phase of each round. In this case, all the winter effects are activated simultaneously. These effects are mandatory. There might be some kingdom cards in the region. This one says you have to discard this card, so that's a mandatory effect. Now all the heralds are moved back to their owner's player boards. However, all the supporters are moved to the lost pile, which means they don't return back to your player board, they are in the lost area. Now all the clash markers are returned back to their designated space, and now all the cards are placed into their owner's discard pile. However, if the card has any influence tokens there, remove 1 influence token, but keep the card in that region. Finally, move the round marker to the next round, and that's the end of the round. Now the new round starts with the start of the year phase, which only has 2 steps. In the first one, players will simultaneously draw cards. Draw the cards from your draw deck until you have the number of cards equal to your hand limit. If your draw deck runs out, reshuffle your discard pile. However, you have to suffer the attrition. The attrition means that you reduce your hand limit by 1, you rotate this marker, and then continue drawing cards from your draw deck until you have the number of cards equal to your hand limit. So in our example, it's 5. Then in the next step, determine the new turn order. The player with the most influence goes first. The player with the least influence goes last. In case of a tie, reverse the player order. So for example, green player has the least influence, so green player will be third. And both purple and blue would have 2 influence, they have the same number of influence, so they will change their relative order. And that's the new order for the current round. So that's it. At the end of the last round, 5 rounds in the standard game, 4 in short, 6 in the extended game, the game will be over. The player with the most influence wins the game. In case of a tie, if any of those players has this Kingdom's Favor token, that player wins the game, and if no such player has it, then the tie will be resolved by the turn order. The player higher on the turn order wins the game. So that's how you play the Old King's Crown. If you encounter any terms or keywords which were not mentioned in this video, take a look at the back of the rulebook. It contains the glossary with all these terms and keywords explained. If you have any other questions or comments, I'll do my best to answer as many as I can. When you get more familiar with the multiplayer game, take a look at the next video, which explains the solo game and how to play against the automated player. And until then, thank you very much for watching. You've been watching the video tutorial for the Old King's Crown game. My name is Branislav Berec, and enjoy the game.